Hi. Thoughts on the Confederate flag. I do not see a problem with people whose family members died fighting for that flag to be able to wave it high. It is historical. And the idea that your son or daughter went and marched in a war, people are just so stupid. They think they were fighting for slavery. Those people who fought were piss poor. They never had a slave a single day in their life.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and the conservative brain rot that compels people to argue in favor of the Confederate flag somehow prevails over any shred of logic or reason. Candace Owens is not an exception to this rule, and I imagine that it is somehow lost on her that that time in history would not have been kind to someone that looks like her.
They fought for the South, and their sons signed up, went to war, and now they're told that even having the flag or having any pride for their dead relatives is something that is wrong and dirty and backwards and racist and associated with slavery. People are so ignorant about slavery and the numbers on slavery. I mean, the idea that everyone had slaves in the South is so stupid. It was the incredibly uber wealthy. People believing that everyone today had a yacht. I mean, it's just so, I'm just going to stop ranting about it. The answer is people should be allowed to keep their Confederate flags and wave them because it represents an element of history.
But in her argument, she's saying that not everyone who went to fight for the Confederacy had slaves, and she's not wrong on that. That it is part of history, and that people died for a cause, and not necessarily to take part in that cause. Here's the thing. You could say the same thing about a lot of horrible wars that are represented by a flag. One of them is a flag that it seems like a lot of people in Candace's orbit seem to be quite fond of, but we reject it and the idea that it stands for. If I'm losing any MAGA fans on that example, it's the Nazi flag, by the way. A lot of y'all seem to like having that around now, and you know what that flag and the Confederate flag have in common. A reminder of how horrible things were done under the guise of being right and allowed. The fact that we have to go round and round in circles about what really happened in history, be it World War II or during slavery, and argue with people to understand the devastating impacts of it makes some of us feel like it's a little gaslit. Saying that you are opposed to slavery and the things that represent it should not be a difficult thing for us to do as a society. Yet here is Candace Owens basically using the heritage not hate argument that right-wingers cling to. And let me ask you a very simple question. What did the South fight for? Y'all love to say states' rights, but what was a part of those rights? It was to own slaves, to own human beings and treat them as property, to deny them rights, to beat them and rape them and murder them, all under the Confederate flag. And conservatives love to pretend like the symbolism of things just don't matter, yet try to have a conversation with them about the American flag, the same one they plaster all over everything. But if someone kneels for it instead of stands, then it's disrespect, and all of a sudden that symbolism matters a whole lot to them. The hypocrisy is a part of their identity at this point. That and missing the blatant irony that always seems right in front of their faces, but just out of their grasp. And also, to top it off, y'all are so angry about people not understanding history. Then why are you so opposed to teaching it correctly, to tell the whole story of our past? Does that symbolism mean anything to you, or is it just a pick and choose kind of thing? Yeah, imagine that.
Another controversy for Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, faced social media restrictions over the weekend after users accused the rapper of posting anti-Semitic content, leading to a block on both his Instagram and Twitter accounts.
In the since removed post, West said that he, quote, was going DEFCON 3 on the Jewish people.
If you are an honest person, you did not think this tweet was anti-Semitic. You did not think that he wrote this tweet because he hates or wants to genocide Jewish people. This does not represent the beginning of the Holocaust. That's if you're an honest person, you'll meet that. You will admit that, right? If you're an honest person, when you read this tweet, you had no idea what the hell he was talking about.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Candace Owens is going to bat for Kanye West after his bizarre and explicitly anti-Semitic tweet caught him a flag on Twitter.
What is DEFCON 3? Did he mean DEFCON 3, which would be a military defense position, not an offense for those of you that are offended, a military defense position? Is he tweeting this because he's reading the Newsweek headline calling him an anti-Semitic? Is he angry because he can't believe that he's not free to talk about people in his life who happen to be Jewish?
Owens has an embarrassing history of being a talking head for white supremacy, but getting into the intentions of someone who called for, and I quote, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, I don't think we need to try and go into the weeds on what it meant or if he took his meds that day. He put it out there and he caught the heat that should have been expected.
If you're a liar, you'll say, I know I was scared, Candace. I actually thought that Kanye West was going to launch a military strike in Israel. Because that's the reaction. Like when I woke up and I looked at the headlines, the reaction was like Kanye West had gotten together a military strike and it was going to go forward in the morning time in Israel. That was the reaction that was met with this tweet.
The rise of anti-Semitic attacks and violence has a direct correlation to the ties to those on the right that prop up white supremacy.
This is not a defensive tweet. This is an open question, which never seems to happen anymore. It's like you cannot even say the word Jewish without people getting upset, in the same way that you're not allowed to say black anymore.
It's not just about attacks on black and brown people in the United States. Jewish people have endured a horrific past, and a softening of that past and the rewriting of history by the right wing is part of the awful trend. The coded language and the dog whistles have coasted these people into the spotlight, and they take their time to not confront it, call it out, and put a stop to it, all led by Donald Trump and his fine people on both sides and taking support from the KKK. This is not a coincidence. There is data to show that correlation between this type of rhetoric and the attacks on Jewish communities and any other community targeted by the right wing. They go after a lot of them. We don't have room for this in our country. Targeting groups of people because they don't align right up to your religion is the exact opposite of what we're founded on. This isn't a theocracy, but the right wing would sure love to have it that way. All the while, they live a life quite different from that of their Christian idols, but they get away with it. There shouldn't be a push this hard to defend someone for saying something this clear. When someone tells you who they are, believe them. And the right and white supremacy seem to be fine in the same room together, and that's a fact.